everybody. So, hopping on to do a quick video for you all. I know it's been a hot minute, but I got new headphones and they are fantastic. And I actually have a mic, and these are noise canceling headphones. So, they're a lot better than the AirPods I was using. The sound quality wasn't the greatest. And hopefully, I have a better backdrop soon. Besides my blinds, I know they're not the prettiest to look at. So, June has been really busy for me, but at the end of the month, I am taking a 2.5 week trip to Japan, and I'm really excited to bring my camera, record a lot of great video content for you, and just have a really wonderful time exploring Japan. And hopefully, I can offer a lot of advice, especially if you're going to go to Japan solo or you want to. However, this video really isn't about Japan. This video is about the fact that I have a fear of flying, and my flight to Japan is 14 hours. Now, I've done a lot of flying in my life, even though I don't like it, but all of my flights have either, they've had layovers or they haven't been quite as long. I know the longest that I've ever done that involved layovers was Philadelphia to Dublin to Helsinki, and that was insanely long, but at least I had some time to veg out at the airport. This is going to be 14 consecutive hours on a plane. And if you're a fearful flyer like me, that's pretty scary, especially with all of the wild news lately, like about people getting hurt by turbulence and all of the Boeing drama. It's a lot. It's a lot to handle. And I'm hoping that this video at least helps you get a little more confidence with your fear of flying. I also have a blog that I've written about this topic a lot on, whether it's the fear of flying over water or a fear of turbulence or a fear of that anticipatory anxiety that you get at the airport. So I do have a ton of content that I'll share in the description that you can read later if you want. But this video is meant to be an overview of just how to deal with a fear of flying in general. So let's get started. My first tip for you is to get to the airport early, preferably 2 hours early for a domestic flight and 3 hours early for an international flight. And guys, I get it. Going to the airport early kind of sucks. I don't like hanging out at the airport. I really wish I could just show up 40 minutes beforehand and just go on my flight. But the reality is, going through airport security is a big time pain, especially if you are not a frequent traveler. I personally have TSA pre-check for the United States, as well as some status with United Airlines. Nothing to write home about, but enough where I get through security a little bit faster. And it makes a big difference. But for most people, you're just a casual traveler and you don't want to understandably waste your money on those things. So it really is important to get to the airport early so you're not stressed about missing your flight. Because especially for bigger airports like Newark Liberty, for example, security can really be touch and go. I've seen a lot of people get caught up in security and they're very close to missing their flight, and that just makes their anxiety even worse. And this applies to layovers too. Make sure when you book your ticket that you have enough time to make your layover. I know a lot of airlines will sell layovers that are maybe 50 minutes long, and if your flight coming in is delayed, that's going to be a major problem. It can take longer than you think with a layover to get to your next flight. I remember this was a couple years ago. I did a flight to Madrid and I had a layover in Brussels. And it was very tight because my incoming flight was late from Newark. And I also had to clear border control when I landed in the EU. And it was just a mess. And it made my anxiety 10 times worse for a 2 hour flight. So do yourself a favor, get there super early. If it means you have to relax in the terminal a little bit, that's fine. Chill out in the terminal, read a book. Play games on your phone, listen to a podcast. It's so much better than rushing and having all of that stress before you even start your flight. Another good piece of advice I have is, if you can book your seat ahead of time, reserve a seat right next to the wing. If you're right over the wing, it will lessen the impact of turbulence if turbulence is something that scares you. I'll be brutally honest about this. I don't do well in turbulence at all. I and it's important to understand. I'm trying to get my thoughts together here. It's important to understand that turbulence can't bring down a commercial jet. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. There's been a lot of really scary stories in the news recently. If you've been following the Singapore Airlines story, that is really scary. I won't go into the specific details because I don't want to accidentally trigger somebody or upset somebody, but it's scary to read about, and it can make you not want to go on a plane if your fear is severe turbulence, especially because it's something that's so out of our control. But it's important to remember that turbulence is not dangerous to the plane. I don't think there's been a plane crash due to turbulence since, gosh, probably before the 1960s. I don't know off the top of my head, but the odds of dying due to turbulence are extremely, extremely low. However, with that being said, because of the change in climate, or depending on the time of year you're flying, like for me, I'm a teacher, so I fly in summer and there's more storms in the air and all that good stuff. It's still very, very important to wear your seatbelt at all times. Something that kind of gets on my nerves as a frequent traveler is the pilot will put the seatbelt sign on, there'll be turbulence in the area, and people are just ignoring it, getting up and down, moving around, which is dangerous to the crew and it's dangerous to yourself. Because even if turbulence can hurt the plane, it can certainly hurt you if you're just out of your seat moving around. However, if you have your seatbelt on, you'll be safe. And I always think back to this one flight, and this is really crazy. I did a flight to Dublin years ago, and it was literally a day or two after the Malaysia Airlines plane disappeared. And I remember as we were flying over the North Atlantic, we hit some rough air, and I talked to the flight attendant, and she said that you have to remember that turbulence is uncomfortable, but it's not unsafe. So on one hand, I do get it. It doesn't feel good to be in turbulent conditions. I hate turbulence with a passion. I'm still scared of it. But it's so, so important to remember that it's not going to hurt you. The pilots are well aware of it. They will try to find smoother air if they can. And truthfully, on longer flights, turbulent conditions don't last all that long. Usually, it's like less than a fourth of the flight, really, unless you happen to be flying into some rough air. But at the end of the day, turbulence isn't going to hurt you. Now, there are some things that you can do to lessen the effects of turbulence. Like I said, a seat over the wing will make a really big difference because the equilibrium of the plane makes the effects of turbulence less severe. If you're willing to spend the money, or if you can book your seat ahead of time, try to avoid the back of the plane. Just like me going to the back of the plane to use the bathroom, I do notice a huge, huge difference in comparison to the seats over the wing or towards the front of the plane. And it can be substantial. So if turbulence really and truly is a problem for you, I would just do whatever you can to book your seat in a more comfortable spot on the plane, because it does make a really big difference. And I also think that because in a lot of ways turbulence is out of our control and that drives our anxiety, at least having your seat booked in advance and picking it out gives you some sense of control back, if that makes sense. My next bit of advice is to make your discomfort known to the flight attendants. Flight attendants are fantastic. Personally, I think there's no reason to suffer in silence on a plane. What I would do if you're really nervous is make your fears known to the flight attendants. The flight attendants are very, very, very used to dealing with uncomfortable flyers, with nervous flyers, with scared flyers. I cannot tell you how many fantastic, compassionate, intelligent, kind flight attendants I've had who've really supported me through long flights back and forth from the US and Europe, and who just really looked out for me the entire time, and it made a big difference. Furthermore, and I can't guarantee that this will happen, but on 3 different occasions, I was actually allowed to meet the pilots and talk to them ahead of time. And just seeing their faces and hearing them laugh and showing me the instruments and explaining the flight path made a huge difference, because it made me realize that I was in capable hands. Your pilots and your crew, they want to get home safely too. They care about you. They care about their families. They want to get home. They wouldn't be going to the airport and flying every single day if it was dangerous. So please talk to them. They're not going to laugh at you, they're not going to make fun of you. They will check in on you, they'll reassure you, and they'll do whatever they can because keep in mind, they're trained to deal with this. They're not just there to give us soft drinks and reheated pasta. They're there in case of an emergency and to help distress passengers. But with that said, make sure that you're always polite to your flight attendants. If you want, bring them little gifts. My friends have done that in the past where they've brought like mints to them or like little chocolates, and the flight attendants do appreciate the gifts. So if you can also do something kind for them, it really makes the experience that much better. But definitely make your discomfort known because they're great. And hey, if you are like me and are flying out of a United hub and you get invited to the cockpit, they'll give you little plastic wings, and earning your wings is pretty cool. So there's always that. The wings, they're technically, I think, for kids, but I think I have 2 sets at this point, but they make me smile. So it's a nice bonus. By meeting the pilots, you get your wings. It's pretty cool. My next tip is to join a fear of flying community online. A lot of airports offer in-person fear of flying classes, but I completely understand that that's not accessible for everybody, especially like using myself as an example. I'm a teacher, I have to be on site every day, and it's not always easy to get to in-person events or in-person meetings, but there is a really big, thriving community online that can certainly help you. So, online communities. A couple of online communities that I've used in the past and have been really helpful are the Fear of Flying subreddit on the Reddit site. This subreddit, it's pretty small, but you have pilots, flight attendants, you have meteorologists, air traffic controllers who all work together to help posters get over their fear of flying. Furthermore, what's really nice is you can post your flight in the group and they will track it if you're feeling upset on your flight. I know for a flight that I did to Frankfurt not too long ago, there was quite a bit of turbulence because there was a system over the North Atlantic. And I posted my flight in the Fear of Flying subreddit, and people were just sending me supportive comments the whole night throughout my flight. And it was really great because I could focus on responding to them. I would listen to their answers. I would reread how important it is to remember turbulence is safe and to ground myself, and it was very helpful. And there's a lot of great resources in there as well, all about the mechanics of aviation if you're interested in that. Another good group to join is the Love Fly group on Facebook. I've actually done a podcast episode for them a couple of months ago, and I believe there's 4,000 people in the Facebook group. And Love Fly is just a very welcoming, warm, kind community, and there are so many people who you are able to talk to and connect with. And it's really helped my fear of flying too, even though I was a guest on the podcast, but just like posting and talking to others. It's just like good to know that you have the support system around you. And also in the Facebook group, you can post about an upcoming flight, you can post questions, you can post concerns, and people will answer you and help you feel better. So just know that I think it's something like 30% of people have a fear of flying, so you're not alone, and those online communities make it very clear, and by joining them, you won't have to fight your anxiety all by yourself, and you can, if not get over it, at least make it a little better. At the end of the day, and I know that this is a bit of tough love, the problem is your anxiety. The problem is not the plane, it's not turbulence, it's not even drama in airport security. The problem that has to be addressed is your anxiety. And I get it. It's tough to hear, but really the anxiety is the problem and not the state of aviation. Like, sure, air travel can be a lot more comfortable and airports can certainly do things to make the experience more enjoyable, but really it's your anxiety that's stopping you, and that really has to be the focus. So if you find that you need professional help for your fear of flying, and there's no shame in that, I see a therapist. I have a prescription for anti anxiety medication that I use for longer flights. If you feel that you need that, go for it. because it'll really help you work through that anxiety. You'll learn coping mechanisms. You'll have that emergency medication if you just really, really need something to take the edge off, and it can make a big difference. So don't be ashamed to talk to a doctor, to talk to a psychiatrist, to talk to a therapist in order to get some help with this, because it is hard to deal with on your own without the help of professionals. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you today. I know that those are some very general, basic tips, but I will link all of my Fear of Flying blog posts in the description. And feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel, to any of my other channels. I am also Blonde Wayfarer on Instagram, on Facebook, TikTok, anywhere that you post on social, I'm probably there. And at the end of the day, I do believe that you can get through this fear. I have a hard time, like I said, with the fear of flying still. Turbulence just makes my palms sweat and my mind just immediately thinks the worst. But I'm still going to Japan in 2 weeks, and I'm going to do my best to make that happen as painlessly as possible. And I believe that you can do it too, because at the end of the day, your fear of flying can cause you to miss vacations, to miss weddings, to, God forbid, miss funerals. And that's the last thing you want. A fear of flying stops you from living your life, and that's serious. And you just deserve so much better than that. You deserve to live a full life full of adventures, and it's so important to do whatever you can not to let this fear stop you. So, good luck, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good evening.